So, hi everybody, welcome to Cardboard Guide, and we have a little podcast on our YouTube channel that's called Cardboard Conversations. And today we have a very special guest.
Yes, we have TG joining us. So, TG, would you like to introduce yourself to the listeners?
Sure. I go by my initials TG, and I'm looking forward to chatting with Sophie and Jens today about magic art and just collectible card game art in general.
So let's just get started with the question that everybody asks when they're like playing card games. When did you get into card games, and what TCGs are you currently playing?
Well, I was lucky enough to be old, so I got to get in fairly early, and I was Unlimited was still in stores, and I was able to get a starter deck or two of Magic, of course, and Antiquities. So that's where I got in. I played up through Urza Saga, and then I actually took a hiatus of about 15 years, and I got back into Theros, and I've been back into it ever since. In terms of what I'm playing, I've played Magic at that time, but more recently Sorcery, which has been really fun, and I think a great home for a lot of people who had the kind of original Magic experience or just enjoy that type of feel.
Yeah, definitely. I like that we have sort of like a similar trajectory in terms of card games. We also played some of the early stuff, and then we sort of got back in around Theros as well, like just before or just around there.
Thereabouts.
Yeah, so I think that's sort of fun. We didn't get in as early, but also
we got in fourth edition, which
you guys aren't as old.
the bad place to start. But what was it about Magic the Gathering that got you hooked on the card game?
I enjoyed the collectability of it. I enjoyed the art a great deal, and the way it played just immediately kind of pulls you in, as people have found all over the world for years and years now. All of those aspects, and then of course the community aspect of it is really important too. It's a game that you can really enjoy with just about anybody in a kind of a common way. I have also done other nerd hobbies like Warhammer or role playing. Those games require a lot more preparation and a lot more time and a lot more commitment, and those are great as well. But it's really nice to just be able to walk in any card store pretty much in any city in the world and play a pickup game of Magic.
What made you have this hiatus that you spoke of?
I kept expecting that the hobby would kind of reach a peak and start to diminish, and I felt a little bit like the foils when they first came out were Magic jumping the shark, to use a term from TV. But obviously I was completely wrong about that. And yeah, I was moved on to Warhammer. I think I was playing a lot of Warhammer then, so it was a good time to step away from me.
Okay, and then you said that you got in sort of around Theros. Was it the set specifically, like the theme of it, or was it just about timing that you had, time to play again?
Yeah, it was about timing, and I don't exactly remember, but at that time I also realized that I really liked the nostalgia and the early cards and that sort of thing, and I wanted to go about collecting some more of those and get back into playing at the same time. So I don't remember which one kind of came first, but it was as much about the collecting the early cards, and it just happened to be that was what was in the stores at that time.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely. So we know that you have played a lot of TCGs, and we also know that you are a great art collector. So what made you transition from playing and collecting TCGs to actually collecting the real stuff, the art that we can see behind you?
Yeah, that's a good transition question from what we were just talking about, because as I started to collect, this was, I guess, around 2015, right, when Theros was out. And as I started to collect some of the older stuff, which was by today's standards reasonable, but still, 4 figures for beta, power cards and that sort of thing. And I would be looking for a card I was looking for, and I'd be on eBay, and I would see every now and then some original art pop up on eBay, and it would be in some cases less expensive than like a beta dual land, even then. And I thought to myself, okay, there's only one of that, like one in the world of that. Like that's so much more collectible, and it's really cool. So at one point I kind of as a whim bought a piece, and the rest is history.
So now you need to tell us what piece was the first piece you got.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny because it's not a terribly significant piece, but it just happened to be a piece that I think it was $600, and I was thinking to myself, how can an original piece of art from 20 years ago be, which is nostalgic, be $600? I'll actually share it with you. So it goes in the video here. But this is Anoint by Eric David Anderson, and I believe that's Gerard getting a bit of medical attention there. So it's a cool piece in that it features one of the big characters from the Wrath Cycle, though he's a little beat up in the picture. And it's not a particularly powerful card or anything like that, but it's still part of my collection.
Okay, but I'm interested. So you get this piece home, presumably you frame it, you enjoy it. When do you go, I could get another one and another one? So when did you think, okay, cool, this is what I'm doing now. I'm going to collect a lot of stuff I enjoy looking at. What happened? It
actually sat unframed because I wasn't really sure what to do with it for, I don't know, maybe a couple of years. And at some point I'm trying to remember which thing actually pushed me over the edge. One thing that really caught my attention was the ability to get an Arabian Nights piece. And there was an Arabian Nights piece on eBay, and I went for that. I think that probably is the thing that really pushed me over the edge into, because it's just like, for me, having come in at a limited in antiquities, Arabian Nights and Beta were like the things that I never got to open or be part of. So to own a piece of art from Arabian Nights was just super exciting. And from there, I got all about the framing and so on.
Yeah, we know those frames are kind of special too, because you made them yourself, right?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the ones sort of over my shoulder here, and I think I've made all of them there except for two. Yeah, I'm a woodworker. Actually, I made the cabinet behind me, and the boxes. Awesome. It's a fun hobby, and even for folks who aren't woodworkers, going to the store, the frame store, and spending time talking to the framer about how to pair up your art and bring out the art that you've purchased, right? Bring out the colors and get the best possible frame you can. It's a sort of an opportunity to add your own creativity to the artist's incredible creativity and sort of collaborate in an after the fact sort of way. So it's definitely fun.
Oh, that is cool, because I've seen a lot of like discussion about the framing and, what kind of wood do you want? What kind of like insert mat do you want? And what colors do you want to sort of play up and play down? So I never thought about it, but that's really a way that you can sort of like personalize the piece even further. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's also very regionally dependent. A lot of folks in your part of the world like white frames and white mats. And they're really, in a lot of ways that makes sense, right? Because the austerity of that really brings the art out. So it's just a matter of personal taste and culture, I think.
Yeah, and also, like Scandinavian people, we are all about like the white and the frames being very tight, very narrow, as you maybe see behind us. But Cool, I really like that. So you have a spouse, and this spouse is not necessarily into magic as much as you are. But she is in this case. Oh, that's cool. So she was like on board with everything on the walls and just enjoying the art as well?
Absolutely. She's sort of the co-curator, I guess, of our collection.
Oh, I love that. That's so cool.
Yeah, so we usually consult. Occasionally one of us will really like something, and more power to you, but typically we're consulting and kind of trying to buy things that both of us are really into. Yeah, she's been playing Magic with me since I met her in 1997. And so we play cards together, we collect art together. You're correct that she's not as into it as I am, but
but still, I love that, because that must also be fun, because I presume that you go to like shows together and look at art and talk about it. And is this for us? Is this a piece we might want to purchase? That's really cool to enjoy that part of it together as well.
Absolutely. And we do not just, fantasy art or magic art, but we also do a little bit of modern and some just traditional, I guess you could say, art as well, landscapes and so on. And so, one of our favorite things to do is to go to an art show or a museum and see art.
Yeah, we're also, we're returning to that point at somewhere in this conversation. But before we go there, do you have some sort of ground rules or something to pick out the right art? Because I imagine that you can't be buying everything you want. So what sort of criteria do you have to pick out the art you want?
Yeah, it's a good question. And there are very different ways to value art, and it's intensely personal. And I'd say the main thing is an excitement factor. And there can be a couple of things. It can sometimes the image itself is just beautiful and it's art for the art's sake. And sometimes it's more about the nostalgia or the card effect or a character you like, right? So I think that that's a little different from my other art collecting, in that this is also driven by that. So I actually have an example of that as well. So this is
I feel like we're getting spoiled. This is so fun.
Yeah.
This is one of the most important pieces.
Wow.
Such troll, isn't it?
Often troll, one of the most important pieces of visual art ever made, and it also is a little nostalgic.
Yeah.
It's super cool. It's iconic. It's not fine art, even though it's quite well done and characterful and great, and it fits the oi card just great. So that was one where, well, number one, it was an alpha, which is super exciting. And number two, it was just an iconic piece. So that one had tons of wow factor for me. And then there's other ones where I'm just like, oh my goodness, that piece is so beautiful. And I think I tend towards the lands and landscapes in terms of that, most of all. So I actually bought that piece from Kaja Foglio. Because she traded from Doug many, many years ago. She traded the Kumbaya Witches to Doug for the Ustin Troll. And then decades later, she was ready to pass it along.
That's a great story for the art piece.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
I have a nice letter from her. She, wrote telling the story in the provenance, and she even sketched a little spirit link in the corner of it for me. So it's really special.
Wow,
that's epic. I love that they're sort of like, because I do archaeology and we have a lot of stuff about provenance. I love that there's like the story and the biography of the art itself and the way that it sort of moved to you. That's really fun.
It is. It's like sort of like a celebrity owned car or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's really cool. When you go and you collect the art, are you also sometimes like looking for new talent? Does it, factor in who the artist is, or is it mostly about the piece and the sort of excitement that piece gives you?
Yeah, I think those go hand in hand, and there are definitely new talents that I'm excited about. There are talents that are not in any of the CCGs I play that I would love to see in the CCGs I play. And that features into something we'll talk about a little later on, artist residency that we do. It's not just necessarily classic artists. There are some really great up and coming artists in sorcery and in magic that I would love to have a piece from.
Cool. Mm-hmm. So could you mention what has gotten you excited in sorcery? Where do you think, okay, this is so cool, this is already iconic, or something that will be iconic?
Well, it's 100% hand-drawn art, as you guys know, and that in and of itself is really exciting to me. The full art and the whole aesthetic of the game is absolutely stunning. Even the little card descriptions on the rarity tab are like little haikus. They're just beautiful. So much love and a care went into this. And I also have a kind of a personal connection to it, in that the person who got me into this was Jeff Menges, who's an alpha artist. And he was here for our residency, and he was like, TG, you have to check out this game. You have to get on the Kickstarter. Trust me, this is going to be a big deal. I was like, oh yeah, no, magic. And I didn't. But I did, after the Kickstarter closed, at least order a box off of eBay. And when that finally, was fulfilled and I got my box, I was like, wow, this is really cool. And I bought some more, and I haven't stopped buying sorcery since then. I don't have any sorcery art yet. I've looked at a lot of it. It's beautiful. I haven't found one that I like was the right one to start with yet. But I suspect I will at some point.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Definitely. Okay, so I'm just interested. Do you have some sort of favorite artist, or maybe a lot of them?
Oh, that's
yeah,
evil.
that's hard.
Hard.
That's just evil. Yeah,
That's like picking your favorite child.
yeah, exactly.
You know, I'll pick one that Anne Marie and I can both really, really agree on, and it's Rebecca Gay. Rebecca's work is absolutely gorgeous. I have one of those with me as well. This is one of our favorites.
No way.
A youthful night, isn't it?
That's
Yes, it is.
amazing.
Oh, I love that.
Okay, that's a big favorite at our house as well.
Yeah. You wanna see something?
Oh my goodness! How cool is that? Oh, that's a beautiful tattoo.
Definitely.
Awesome.
So you're an elf player, so I need, of course, to have the Priest of Titania. But yeah,
That's great. I didn't know you had that. That's really cool.
no, I keep it, under the sleeve. But yeah,
well, Rebecca's work is worth memorializing in that way. So yeah, absolutely, we're all on the same page about that. And it's hard to get her work because it resonates with so many people.
Yeah.
I looked for quite a while before I could find a piece of hers, and I had to buy it with two other pieces, which are nice pieces, but not ones I necessarily wanted, in order to get it.
Yeah, I could imagine that her pieces are difficult to get because I think they resonate with a lot of people who play the game, but also to anyone who has like a beating heart for fantasy or historical pieces. And she's sort of like, she has a lot of like width to her work as well. So people from all generations really just enjoy it, and it is just remarkable.
Yeah, I completely agree. And she's a big influence, right, in the Magic community. I don't know if you guys know this, but she runs teaching clinics and so on. Other Magic artists go to those teaching clinics and learn from her. And so there's a couple artists who do that. I think Jeff Miracola comes to mind, but there are a few others. Donato Giancolo is another person that's a big teacher within the community. So there are some people that are sort of known among the other artists for their teaching and for their skills.
Oh, that's amazing. Wow. And very cool to sort of like pass it on to the new generation of TCG artists and helping like shape that art as well in the future. That's so cool.
It is. It's passing it on, paying it forward, however you want to look at it. But absolutely, it gets that common thread through. Yeah.
Definitely. Wow. I would love to see her also do some cards for sorcery. That would be absolutely amazing. But yeah,
there's some people coming up for sorcery that will be pretty exciting. So we will have some more sorcery cards coming along that from some artists that we know. I'm sure.
Oh, that sounds cool. Sounds like you know a little.
That sounds like inside information right there.
Cool.
Might that have something
neither
to
confirm
do
nor
with
deny.
So might that have something to do with the residency that you actually have? And would you talk a little about what that is about?
Yeah, I can talk about that. So I have been really enjoying the art for a long time, and having gone to some of the art shows and got to meet folks. There's one in particular called IX. It stands for LuxCon. It's probably the premier fantasy and imaginative realism art show in the world. And it happens to be kind of in my backyard. And so I chatted with Anne Marie. We live on a farm in Pennsylvania. It's beautiful country around here. The farm is from 1790, has some beautiful stone buildings and a lot of land and preservation land around us and so on. And we find it so inspiring. She does a lot of photography, and I just find it inspiring just generally. And we thought, wow, it would be nice to share that with artists. And it would be nice if artists were not always having to chase doing APs or repaints or whatever the art director at Matt Wizards or whoever Eric thinks that they should be painting. And that is, we wanted to free them up to do something that was like a personal work, or for younger artists or newer and career artists, they would have a chance to just come and paint what they want and not worry about making ends meet. So we kind of invented the artist residency to meet that. And the first year we did a 5-week residency, and we had Jeff Menges, who's an alpha artist, and it was just a wonderful experience for us. And Jeff said that he got to do stuff he'd never gotten to do in his career, and it was kind of career changing, and I couldn't hope for anything more, right? So we took that. We also got feedback that it was hard for people to get away for 5 weeks. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with academic residencies.
Yeah.
We sort of had in mind like it was a sort of semester residency, or is it, but those can be hard to get away for. And so we instead have two-week residencies now. And that's what we did this summer, and that's what we're going to do next summer as well.
Oh, I think that's amazing. Being like an academic and coming from an academic background, having those residencies makes all the difference in the world, because you're not, concerned about, oh, I need to do this and this. You can just really free up some time, do some original work, be that academics or art. So I think that's absolutely amazing. And hearing someone like Jeff Menges say that he's doing something he hasn't done for an entire career, that must really have blown you both away.
Yeah, no, it's very fulfilling to us as well to know that we've been able to make a difference. And like that's really the only rule for the residency is make art and don't come work on your commissions. Do something for yourself. You can go out and do plein air work, which all the artists who have been here so far have done at least a little bit of that, or work on a personal project or whatever it is. It's funny because when I first envisioned it, I was imagining that the ideal candidate would be somebody who is probably up and coming, maybe an urban type of person who doesn't get a chance to come out and experience a farm. But so far, two of the artists that we've had have been really well-known artists, Jeff Menges and Jeff Laubenstein, who kind of have had fantastic careers already. And for them, an opportunity to come and do something different was really good for them. But we also have our eye out there for new and up and coming artists. And you don't have to be, an alpha original artist in order to get into our program. So, and in fact, last year we had Linley Barba. Linley is a newer artist. She's done a bunch of interesting illustrations, but not for cards at this point. She's working on her own game. And she also has done illustrations for things like BBC podcasts and covers and stuff like that. So it's nice to have a mixture of that. But I think the perfect candidate to me is somebody who's up and coming, and we can give them a new opportunity, something to put on their resume, an opportunity to put something else in their portfolio that they can show people.
How do you apply for residency if you are an up and coming artist and are listening to this and thinking, wow, that sounds great, I would really like to do that?
Yeah, so we have a Facebook page for Finley's View Farm Artist Residency, and I will post up. It has a bunch of photos and it has sort of what the program's about. You also, of course, you can reach out through that and ask questions, and I'm happy to answer them. I haven't actually set a date for applications for next year yet. I'll be doing that in the next couple of months here. And we'll pick 2 folks, and we will set dates with them based on our and their availability for next year. And then one thing that's been really cool with LuxCon is that the folks who run that have been so generous as to give us a page in the LuxCon flyer every year for the residency. So that's obviously the greatest way to reach out to artists. And I spend a lot of my time at the show admiring art and talking to artists about, gee, you really might want to try coming to this residency if you'd like. And it's a good time.
Yeah, because we talked at our Discord channel, and we know that you were at the ILXCon and going around advertising and stuff. So at this ILXCon, were there some highlights? Some experiences that you thought, wow, that was just amazing?
So I'll give 2 highlights. One is that a family friend of ours, young woman, she's 17 and she's still finishing high school, and she wants to be an illustrator, maybe in the tattoo field, but you have to be a great artist, of course, to do tattoos. People are going to have to live with those for a long time. And so I had an opportunity to bring her along for a couple of days, and I introduced her, of course, to a lot of artists, and they were very warm and very welcoming to her and helped her with a lot of advice. And it seemed like very good, very practical advice. And there's even a couple of well-known fantasy folks who do tattoo art. And so she was able to speak to them as well about the tattoo field. So I really appreciated the generosity of folks about that and the welcomingness they had to a young artist. I'd say the other story that was pretty fun is we happened to be at the right place at the right time. One of my friends I was at the show with, Jose, noticed one of Liz Danforth's paintings and said, "Oh, let's go back and look at that." So we went back to look at that, and it just turned out to be the moment that Liz Danforth was going to unveil her Sealy Court art for sorcery. And so if you happen to go on the sorcery site and watch the little video there, you'll see me and my friends admiring Liz's work. And she was so proud of that work and so happy with that work. And she's just a wonderful person and a good storyteller about it. And so it was a very... it was a wonderful moment to be there for. It was just serendipity, and my friends who were along aren't big big art collectors or anything like that, but they just really felt the importance of that event, and just I think it gave them a really deep appreciation for the art.
Yeah, and I would imagine also like Liz's ability to tell stories and sort of like engage the audience would draw anyone in, because I've heard her like just briefly tell about some of her art pieces, and she just has this wonder way of like narrating the story and the art that's really sort of like almost mesmerizing. In fact, it really draws you in.
Yeah, she has a great persona, and she was very proud of that piece, justifiably so, in particular because it has so many characters in it.
Yeah,
a dozen or so characters, and she wanted to imbue each of them with a personality and really make them special. And that, of course, is a big project to do, and she succeeded.
The art is up on sorcerytcg.com, and I imagine also Liz's own page. I will try and link to that so people can just have a look at it, because it really is a very cool piece and like a lot of things going on. So also I imagine a tricky piece to sort of like get the composition and everything right.
Another thing that was interesting about talking to Liz about it is she painted for early Magic, right? She has one of the 4 Hymn to Torak paintings. She has other, really iconic pieces.
Yeah.
And she's holding on to her sorcery stuff much more so. And she's kind of thinking that that's going to be part of her retirement plan, because so many Magic artists sold their pieces for a couple $100, way back when. That's another reason, by the way, that we do the residency, is because I can't buy alpha pieces from alpha artists usually. I have to buy them from somebody else who's making the money off of it. And there is a program that a lot of people who are Magic collectors sign up for, where we pledge to give 5% of the profit of any sale that we make back to the original artist.
Oh, that's awesome.
That is a nice program, and I've signed up for that. Though the one time I've tried to do it, the artist said, "Oh, I don't deserve that," and I pushed it. He wouldn't take it. So you never know. Some people really enjoy it and appreciate it as well. But they do tend to be humble and sweet people.
Yeah, cool. But I think that's interesting. Also, like the concept of it's difficult with a new game that doesn't have like the 30-year legacy of Magic. So I think it's a good idea, like sort of holding some stuff back and maybe like slowly dripping out those APs and stuff like that. So we've been talking mostly about like the larger stuff, the original art, but there are a lot of other opportunities out there. Could you maybe talk a bit about like what other things than just the original paintings could people go out and maybe get?
Yeah, this doesn't need to be going out and buying the Black Lotus for $4 million that was sold for not too long ago.
Wow.
It can be much more accessible. So artists will do sketches on cards or altars for very reasonable amounts. They also are given a number of artist proofs with every printing, which have blank backs, and people just used to sell them with blank backs and weren't really sure what to do with them. But these days people realize that you can paint something on there and it can be an original little painting, and those can be very reasonable sometimes or very expensive sometimes. It depends on the piece. I think I saw that Jürgen from Nerd and Proud of It had a really beautiful series of artist proofs from Jeff Menges that he had a painting painted on the whole back of, kind of connecting all of them together. And that was a really cool thing. Though I'm sure that one wasn't quite cheap. But you also can get sketches and preliminaries for art. And so if you have a particular card that you love, or you love the art for it, and you're able to just have a pencil sketch for it. You can see the artist's thinking process as he or she was putting that piece together. It's really exciting as well. And those can range from the low hundreds. So there are places to look for these things. I think particularly in the Magic area, a lot of that is transacted through a Facebook page. So there's an art marketplace for Magic Art Marketplace. I think there's also one for sorcery that Mike Servati runs. So there are some good trading sites for that. You can also find things on eBay, and some of the bigger stuff will go up on heritage auctions. Demonic Tutor, I think, from Magic was up on heritage auctions a few years ago. So there's just a lot of different options out there. The other thing that people forget is that you can reach out to the artists, and these people can make good livings doing this stuff, but they are not, fabulously wealthy. They can afford to do work for you as well, and it can be, a sketch. It can be, whatever you want to work with them. If you have a budget and you love an artist, reach out to that artist and see if they're willing to take a commission, and what it would cost.
I think that's a great idea to sort of it broadens the horizon a bit, that it doesn't have to be like an old school traditional oil painting. It could be a sketch. It could be an artist proof. It could be anything that you can get that artist to sort of collaborate with you on, especially if you're talking directly to the artist and all the proceeds are going directly to them. You are definitely supporting them in the way that you can afford to. I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah, and also that there are different, entry points into collecting art, that you can, collect sketches or even larger paintings. And Gigi, you also said that Liz Stanford were thinking about having some of these sorcery paintings as her retirement fund. If I were to collect art, because I love art, but also, maybe speculating that this piece might become more valuable in the future, what should I look for, and how should I maybe take the best care of the painting?
Oh, those are two good questions. I haven't seen a long enough arc to feel like I know that things are going to make money on them, and I guess I feel like because of the rarity of them and the nostalgia associated with them, especially the older pieces, are at least going to hold value. That's what I think. When I first got in 2015, things were definitely cheaper. They did go through a peak, though, a couple of years ago, and have come back down a little bit, I would say. So it's a little hard to know what the future holds. I think one of the reasons that it peaked was that artists had switched to a lot of digital art. And then when they realized that they could get 3, 10, 150,000 for Drizzt a couple of years ago for their paintings, they moved back. I think I see a kitty back there.
Yeah, there's a cat.
They moved back into traditional art, which is fantastic, and that has led to more market availability, which I think has brought the price down a little bit. But yeah, if you're thinking about investing, you're looking for things that are nostalgic. You're looking for things that people loved when they were young and couldn't afford stuff, and now they're older and they're getting towards the maturity of their career, or maybe even retirement. I mean, think about classic cars, right? It's the cars that the guys wish they could have when they were 18. They're now 65, right? And they now go buy that car. In terms of caring for them, it varies a lot with how the art is made. So, for example, oils want to be exposed to the air, right? They dry. They never really dry. If you put glass in front of them, they potentially could crack, and they're very resilient. Their watercolors are extremely fragile. So Rebecca Gay does mostly watercolors, and sunlight can damage those very, very easily. And there's some excellent glasses out there, like True View has a museum glass that is very, very low reflection and has very, very good UV protection. And so getting that over the painting and making sure that you're not putting it sort of where it's going to get a lot of direct sunlight can be really, really good for preserving that for the long term. Professional framers will use good quality material too. They'll use acid-free mats and special and all that kind of stuff. You can also buy all that stuff and do it yourself if you want to. But it's worth investing in. It is not cheap to get professional framing done, but for a couple $100, you can typically get a nice frame that will keep your piece of art in good condition for a long time.
What about like the smaller stuff? Because I kind of want to get an AP at some point, and I was thinking like, okay, do I want to put this in a penny sleeve because I presume that it will stick because this person does like either acrylics or like oil painting on the back of the AP. So how would you take care of something like that? Just like sort of using you as the expert here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking about a few APs that I have, and I haven't really experienced the sticking. I've experienced it more with altars.
Yeah.
I've had some acrylic altars where you kind of get that sticking effect. So, like you say, I think it depends a little bit on the medium as to whether you would get that. There was somebody who had a Kickstarter who was going around at a LuxCon giving all of the artists a sample of what was basically a one-card frame. So I don't know or endorse that, but you can buy like pre-made things that are made to just have one card in them, and you can put them on the wall. And there's also some really cool card holders as people have been wanting to display their, collectible baseball cards and stuff for a long time. So there's some really neat stuff out there. At one point, I had my some of my older cards in these 3x3 acrylic sheets that held them separately, and I would mount them on the wall. So I had like a whole wall of older cards because I wanted to be able to enjoy them. And like that can be a nice approach too, where you get a few, acrylic holders for them and mount them on the wall.
Yeah.
Again, I think you want to be careful about sunlight and direct sun especially. But you want to enjoy it. Like, what's the point of having something in a binder and never seeing it?
Yeah, exactly. That was why we were like discussing at some point, like, how would we like, store that or like display that? So what about like humidity control and stuff like that? Because if you do have a lot of art and you want to take really good care of it and be able to enjoy it for a long time, do you do anything special for that besides just having like your house at a normal temperature and humidity?
Yeah, no, we don't. We're lucky enough to have central air and heating in the house, even though it's an old house, which helps for sure. Oil paintings in particular are pretty resilient, but I also know of some paintings that have been very damaged by flooding, and it certainly can get mildewy and other kinds of things as well. So you do want to think about the environment that you have it in. The professional framers will, it's not going to protect it from everything, but the fact that it has a nice dust cover on the back, it's all an acid-free material, it's got glass in the front. I think that probably slows down the, ups and downs of humidity and heat and that sort of thing, which helps. I have yet to see, now we're only talking about a decade, right? Not, or 3 decades in some of the old art. We're not talking about the centuries that you see for, for classics. But I have yet to see something that's sort of been degraded or damaged. But I also try to take good care of it.
Yeah, exactly. So you're getting into sorcery because we know you and we talk on Discord and you're playing a lot and you're like looking a lot of the cards. And has there been anything where you're like, maybe I want to track down this piece of art, or I'm looking a little extra at this artist and seeing what's going on for future projects?
Yeah, there's a lot of those. I actually went through my binder of sorcery cards to kind of think about that issue. One thing that really caught my eye, and I've done nothing about it, I assume this is probably sitting in Eric Olson's study or something like that, but I really like, I think it's Dan Seagrave's Great Old One. It's got this little ship, on this beautiful sea, and then under the water, you see this thing that's kind of part Cthulhu, part shark under there. And I think that piece is just wonderful. But there's a lot of wonderful pieces. And I've had a chance to see a lot of them up close and personal, and they're wonderful that way too. Drew Tucker and Jeff Menges and Liz Danforth were all at IX, and got to see so many beautiful pieces with them. And it's pretty exciting.
Oh, that's cool. That's very cool. Do you find that the cards and the art changed a lot? Because we do know that Eric is pretty hands-on about like either suggesting different colors or like cropping the image to make sure that the central figure stands out. Did you have any surprises, like seeing the original art compared to the art cards?
Well, I've had a chance to talk to sorcery artists about working with Eric, and he is, I think if you listen to Liz's interview, one of the things she says is he's the best art director she's worked with in like 40 years or whatever that she's had a career for. And I've heard that from other people that they really love working with him as well. And yes, he does give some art direction, and he does sometimes ask for changes, but compared to Magic, it's like complete freedom. I mean, Magic's very precise these days about what they're looking for. And Eric, by comparison, will actually sometimes get art back and go, this is a little different than what I expected. I'm going to change the card to fit this art. And that is really special. So I think, so in terms of your actual question, which is, did I see any art that was changed? One of the more notable ones is Rubble by Jeff Menges.
Okay. Interesting.
It was actually the other way around. Eric didn't like the way that the credit for the artist like hit the card or whatever. So he said, Jeff, can we just mirror this the opposite way around? So if you ever see the original art for Rubble, it will be the other way from the card.
That's pretty interesting because, I mean, that's something that has been a feature of a lot of the curios, is that the art is inverted or mirrored or however you want to put it. And that's something I'm hearing from a lot of people that, that is actually something he does a lot because there's like a detail or something that he doesn't want hidden behind the text or something. So that's kind of fun hearing that with Rubble, especially because Rubble has become more like prominent because in beta you can draw it from the site slot as well.
Yeah,
also
in the Geomancer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you need those Rubbles. I just ran a sorcery tournament last night, and I had a good sized stack of Rubbles, and one person was able to draft a Geomancer, so those Rubbles were coming in use. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is true that one of the things that's fun about collecting art for a game is that there are Easter eggs in the art. Sometimes it's bigger than what you saw. Sometimes there's notes or marginal comments. One of my favorite stories like that is I'm looking in front of me the art for Flare from Drew Tucker from Ice Age. And Ice Age and Alpha were all done kind of at the same time, roughly. And then Ice Age was rolled out later. And Flare is a fairly unimportant card in the grand scheme of things. It does it's like 3 mana to do 1 damage or something like that. It's like they realized lightning bolt was too good and they did Flare and then they shot the other direction. But it's a beautiful piece of art. But when I bought it from Drew and I received it in the mail, he had handwritten on it, Wrath of God.
Oh.
So it was originally produced to be Wrath of God. It could have even been Wrath of God intended for Alpha, or it could have been Wrath of God because there were some cards repeated in Ice Age. But that kind of stuff is so cool. And it is, if you look at the art, it is very evocative of Wrath of God, much more so than a little Flare. And those things are fun from a lot of different perspectives because you learn about some of the history of it. But then also for me, I'm like, wow, okay, this art is now, to me, twice as valuable because it's for a more iconic card and for a really interesting provenance and story.
Oh, that's
Definitely.
really fun.
Yeah, that is actually, the fun thing about art, that it tells a story.
Yeah.
The original Wrath of God, wasn't that Quentin Hoover that did
Yes.
that piece?
Yeah, that's a really iconic piece. I love both of them. I certainly wouldn't change what happened in history other than to maybe give Flare a little bit better balance.
Yeah.
Justice for Flare.
Yeah, justice for Flare, definitely. That's pretty cool. So working with all of these like artists and discussing and talking with them, is there anything that they prefer to work on in terms of, do they love doing their own projects, or are they really excited to do card games? Because I imagine that sometimes you do a piece and it gets to a person and they have it in their private collection. Where if you do a piece for a card game, sort of everybody gets to enjoy that art. Have you ever spoken to any of the artists about like the difference between that?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of if so on that specific question. I mean, they love doing commissions for people as well, and interesting things to do and draw, and sometimes with less art direction. Because for me, if you think you know exactly what you want, why come to an artist? Like
Yeah.
that's an overstatement, but
Yeah.
I'd rather say to the artist, "Here's a general concept. You seem like an artist who does this kind of work. Can you do something along these lines?" And then let them surprise you with how amazing their mind works. Is the way to go. But they really like that aspect where they have a bit more freedom. But those cards, as you say, can pay the bills and pay the dividends. Jeff Menges, jokes that he's an oldies act because he travels around the world signing swords to plowshares. I mean, it's like Queen going around playing "We Will Rock You" or the Rolling Stones, playing "Satisfaction."
Yeah.
And he said, "Hey, me and swords to plowshares, we have an understanding." The plowman. And on the other hand, now that he's back in Alpha Sorcery, he calls that his comeback tour. He's got a new album out, and so there's a lot of parallels to that. And those do pay the he and some of the other classic artists get invited to go to old school and vintage events around the world, and the people just eat up their APs and their sketches and their card alters, and it's a great source of income for them, as well as just a lot of fun for them to meet all these people who enjoy their work.
Yeah, I would imagine also like new generations constantly like getting into it and just discovering and rediscovering these old artists. I would imagine there's like a constant flow of people like, "Wow, you did Swords to Plowshares," and he's like, "Yeah, I did."
Exactly. Yep.
Definitely. So I think we're about to wrap up. But TG, do you have some final advice for people out there that wants to collect art? Maybe an artist to look for, or we know that Frank Frazetta art has been really hot with sorcery, and we also talked a little about Quentin Hoover. That's also a late artist. So what should we look for? Is there some sort of good entry price into having a real artist painting, and what should I be looking for if I want to have something cool for my collection to start out with?
I think that if your goal is to have an original piece of, say, magic art for a reasonable price, going back to some of the sets from maybe the early 2000s that are not like bangers of sets, you can sometimes get an original piece of art from one of those sets for maybe $1,000 to $1,500, and then you have an original piece of magic art, which is just really cool. I mean, it's just really fun to have that. So if your goal is more to just find an entryway into really owning a published piece of magic art, that's a great approach. If you're looking for something that's more of an investment or long-term and to spend a little bit more money on it, I feel like trusting your own nostalgia and instincts about something being really cool is probably a good way to go. Or sometimes on newer art, is it a card that you think is going to be a really good card and that people are going to be really excited about for 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road? That's a good investment as well. In terms of artists, I'm trying to think if people's tastes in artists change. I'm sure they very much do over time, but I haven't seen that arc where Rebecca Gay paintings were cheap 10 years ago. I'm sure they were still, they were cheaper than they are now, but I'm sure they were expensive compared to other people's paintings. A lot of other people's paintings anyway. So I don't have a hot tip for you about buy artist X because that's the next big thing. I will pitch a couple of artists that at least Linley Barba, who was in our artist residency. Her stuff is really cool. And then another artist I really, really enjoy is Amelia Leonards. If you like Rebecca Gay's stuff, I think you might like Amelia's as well. It's definitely not the same. You wouldn't want it to be, but it's watercolor. It's beautifully done. It's imaginative, and I would love to see her stuff in sorcery. So if you're looking for something that's not yet in a card form and therefore a little bit more accessible, that's a person that I might consider looking at.
Thank you for the tip.
Yeah, I feel like we need to go Google right after this and go have a look at that. We will definitely try to put down in the description when we publish this some links to people, some of the people that you've mentioned, so that we can go check it out. But thank you so much for this conversation. It has been an absolute pleasure talking about the art and the passion of art. And I kind of think that if you buy something and you love it and you enjoy it every time you watch it on your wall, that is definitely also a huge win and a great investment in just having a piece that you really love. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much for having me. You guys do a fantastic webcast, and I really enjoy your Discord as well. So for anybody who's watching this and is not on the Discord, should definitely get on there. I think the internet can be kind of an unwelcoming place sometimes with a lot of trolls and so on. And the Cardboard Guide Discord is a place that's very much the opposite of that, and a wonderful place. And you guys set the tone for it. So thank you.
And thank you for being in there and definitely also helping to create that really kind and helpful vibe that we are just really grateful and appreciative of everybody joining and being in there and being kind. So we really enjoy our time in there. So please do join. And if you wanted to hit the like button and consider subscribing, that would also really help out the channel. Thank you for watching.